So I just want to transition to one more topic before we wrap up here, and that is the Boeing Embraer breakup.
Oh,
so
gosh, yeah.
What do you got for us?
That's huge. Boeing was going to acquire roughly 80% of Embraer, and Embraer is the big aircraft manufacturer down in Brazil. And Embraer's got an impressive aircraft line. So they've made smaller aircraft, but now they're into like the sort of 100 to 150 passenger aircraft. The E2 is their series of aircraft that's like a 737-ish kind of airplane. And so it's a little bit below in terms of size of a 737. So it would be like an entry level to a 737 or entry level to a 757 sort of thing. And Boeing was going to acquire 80% of Embraer for roughly $4 to $5 billion. And that deal it's been a while when that deal started. So that deal had been kind of progressing its way through. That was sort of in response to some of the things that Airbus had done. So Airbus had purchased, or Airbus was given 50% of the C-Series program when the Bombardier and the C-Series were having trouble financially, and they just needed to unload part of that program and the debt that they were going to incur from that program. So Airbus acquired that, and then I think Airbus bought the last bit of it just recently. So Airbus had bought this entry-level airplane, which they put a new name on it, called it the A220. So the A220 is like a 100-ish, again, 100 to 150 passenger airplane, depending on the configuration. Airplane it gets you into like the A320 size airplane. So it's like a regional aircraft. It's a good fit as a regional jet kind of thing. Very modern airplane. The A220 has a carbon fiber wing on it. It's a very advanced technology. It's got a geared turbofan engine on it, very advanced engine and very efficient engine. So Boeing had to do something to sort of compete with that. And so they were trying to, in my opinion, they were trying to grab Embraer and compete at that entry-level jet market, the regional jet market thing.
Okay.
But obviously, Boeing had the 737 MAX issue hit, which stopped all 737 MAXs from flying. And it didn't shut down the production line, but it hampered all their deliveries. So they haven't delivered any of those aircraft yet. And they have to do some more certification work. So Boeing got hit with that. Then this COVID-19 thing hit, and all the airplanes stopped flying for the most part. And Boeing had to stop work at the factory because some of the employees had the COVID-19. So they're doing all the safety measures, which is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And when Boeing, so one of the early things was, can Boeing survive without getting funding from the government? There was going back and forth. There's a lot of sort of bickering on both ends there. But I think Boeing just said, you know what, we could just use $4 or $5 billion back in our bank account. Now, that's a big deal because Embraer, on their side, from what all the things that I've read, was committed to making this deal into reality. So Embraer had stopped, so all that commercial work that Embraer was doing, they had sort of stopped work back in December and then sent everybody home and tried to separate that part of the company into Boeing. And it was going to turn into Boeing come 2020. And everybody would have been, I think, got a new badge. They would have been Boeing, and it's partially owned by Embraer, but Boeing would have been running the show down there in terms of kind of the designs and marketing and that sort of thing. So Embraer spent a bunch of money to get to this conclusion. And then Boeing could walk away and did walk away. Now, I think there's two parts of that. One, Embraer on their own, I think they're going to be just fine, but they're mostly into the metal airplane thing. They've done some carbon fiber stuff, but they haven't been into like the carbon fiber wings yet. So they're mostly doing metal wings, and they're doing carbon fiber bits and bobs around it. On the other side, Airbus has got this A220, which is probably one of the most advanced aircraft being built today. Carbon fiber wing, great engines on it. It's a right fit for the right time when a lot of regional jets are going to be flying in the United States, and a lot of the bigger airplanes are not going to be flying in the United States. So Airbus feels like they're perfectly positioned. Subsequent to that, Boeing and Spirit Aerosystems, which was Boeing. So Spirit in Wichita, Kansas, was the old Boeing facility. So Spirit makes subassemblies for Boeing up in Seattle. And they make like the 787, large sections of 787. They make a lot of 737 fuselages, go from Wichita, from Spirit up to Seattle to where they get finalized. Spirit is going to build a composite wing facility in Scotland. And that was that was going to feed new Airbus wing designs. So some new aircraft that Airbus was planning on doing, Spirit was going to be the manufacturer of the composite wing, and they were building this new facility in Scotland, and it was supposed to open relatively soon. At the same time, Spirit bought the old Bombardier Shorts division in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Well, in Belfast, Northern Ireland is where they make the C-Series, now A220 composite wing. So now they got Spirit has two composite wing facilities sort of right next door to one another. The Scotland and the Belfast places are not physically far apart from one another. So Boeing supply chain through Spirit has all this composite wing technology. So I'm wondering if Boeing is thinking, well, we could buy Embraer for $4.5 billion, whatever the magic number is, or we've got our old division Spirit, which now has these two composite advanced technology wing places. We can build our own airplane.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me that Boeing says, hey, I have a supply chain that I'm already happy with, Spirit, and they have supply chain which has done some remarkable things for Airbus. Maybe we tap into that and start making our own regional jet, and we save ourselves the $5 billion and put a couple billion into a new airplane over the next couple of years and go compete with Airbus. That's a play I think could be real.
Yeah, it seems reasonable.
Yeah, don't you think so? Because there's a lot of aerospace engineers right now looking for jobs. And in Wichita, Kansas, if you hadn't worked for Boeing, that would be unusual when Boeing was still in Wichita. So a lot of the people that had lived in, or the engineers that are in Wichita, had either worked in Seattle or worked at Boeing in Wichita. So there is a knowledge base there about how Boeing does things. So I think there is some connection in there where if Boeing decided not to buy Embraer, I'm not sure it's going to hurt Boeing all that much because they have other options. Embraer, does that make sense? And so Embraer doesn't necessarily have those other options because they would have liked to pair up with a larger player like Boeing so they could compete with the Airbuses of the world. It's only getting bigger, right? So the smaller aircraft companies eventually get eaten up. Bombardier is now just a small business jet aircraft company. They've divested of most of their regional jets. So Mitsubishi took on the regional jets from Bombardier. There's just a real weird consolidation going on. But at the end result of it, you're not getting smaller, newer, quicker companies. You're getting larger, bigger companies to come out of it. A lot has changed.
Gotcha.
It's a big deal. It's a really big deal for Embraer. It's a really big deal for Boeing. And Airbus is just sitting there licking their chops, thinking, "Man, we're gonna kill this market because we don't have any competition right now." That's probably true.